there, fellow YouTubers. Frank Bush here again. So in previous videos I did a detailed breakdown of exactly how to make the Frank Bush modular Ropecraft system. And in this video today I'm just going to do a short video showing some more advanced techniques you can use with this. In the previous video I showed examples of being able to set up tripods, hang bags, put up ridge lines, that kind of stuff. In today's video I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can use this modular Ropecraft system to make a seat to sit on. So if you're interested in that kind of content, stay tuned, yeah? Okay, so I'm right on the edge of a lake and there's some boaters out on the water, so if you hear a bit of boats in the background, that kind of thing, don't be surprised. But the first example I'll do is I've got two trees here. I got one here and one right here, and I'm going to take that log you see sitting in the background. I'm going to show an easy way to use the modular Ropecraft system to strap that up to become a bench, and then I'll show you another example after that. And like I say, I'll try to aim to have this video not be too long. I know some of my videos get quite long, but hopefully this one won't be too long, yeah? Okay, so I'll try to keep myself out of the camera as much as possible, but if you've watched the previous modular Ropecraft system video, you'll know that I like to keep them bundled up in groups of 4, just to have them in nice hanks so I can keep them in my bag and that kind of thing. But for this example, I'm just going to pull off a single one of these, and so I'll just get it out to the point where I've got one that's freely available. And I'll just free it up from the bundle. And the one good part about this kind of setup is there is no knots when you're out in the field. So I'll just take this single unit now that I have, and like I say, if you don't know full details about this unit, it's on my channel. I've got the Frank Bush modular Ropecraft system. I did a simple one that's a little simpler than these that uses tarred bank line, but to me this really is the most advanced and durable one, and it's in a separate video that sits up there as well, and that's the Frank Bush modular Ropecraft system. So if you're interested in it, go check it out, yeah? But I'm simply going to come around the tree with this. Now with my modular Ropecraft systems, there's loops on the end, so I'm just going to feed the remaining cordage through that and let it hang on the tree. So really simple, there's nothing to it, yeah? And I'm going to do the exact same thing I did here onto this other tree that's sitting over there, and I'll try to do a close-up of that so you guys can see. It's super elementary, yeah? Okay, and I'll try to do this to stay out of the camera as much as I can. The lighting here is really tricky at the location I'm at, but like I said, I've got a loop that sits at the one end of these modular systems, and I've got the 2 Pro-6 hanging on the line, that kind of stuff, yeah? But the thinking really is, all I'm doing is wrapping this piece of cordage around the tree, and then I'm taking the remainder of it and just feeding it right through. And I'm not even, as long as I get one of the Pro-6 drop lines that are on this unit through, that's good enough for me. That'll do what I need it to do, yeah? So I'll just shift this now, because I actually want to have it kind of on that side, but I wanted to get the lighting as best I can. And I want to make sure that the height of this is roughly the same as the other tree sitting over here that I put the other piece of cordage on. I'll step back and kind of show that too, right? But I just wanted to show that part. It's really super elementary, nothing to it. Just feed the line through the loop, right? After you wrap it around the tree. So hopefully you can see now that I've got the one tree here where I've got its line just hooked on, and like I say, there's a single Pro-6 drop line that comes off here, and then the same on this tree over here. I've got the line that comes off, and then there's a single Pro-6 drop off that goes there, yeah? So now I'll do a close-up of, here, let me just shift camera angles a bit. So I got this log down here, and I want to strap that log up between these 2 trees to use it as a bench, if you will. So I'll shift camera angles and I'll give a close-up of exactly how I'm going to strap this branch up between these 2 trees, yeah? So like I say, and then it'll just be kept right at seat height, if you will, and it's big enough that it'll go across those trees without issue. So let me shift camera angles and we'll get on with it. Okay, so this is really elementary too, right? So I'm just going to grab that branch that I had there, and you know, you want this branch to be a good 4 or 5 inches thick. You want it to be a fairly thick one. Now the thinking really is I'm just going to take the cordage, I'm going to bring that underneath, and I'm going to turn around and just hook that right into one of the loops that sits on those Pro-6 drop lines, and just set it in place and let it lock there. Now this tree is holding this branch up. There's no issues in that regard. I can easily turn around and adjust it a bit if I know that this branch is a little bit on the shy side. And if I want to tighten in on this branch to make sure that it doesn't slide or run, I can easily adjust that prusik so that it's kind of at a tighter setting, and know that, yeah, it's okay. There's not as much gap in this triangle here, if you will. And that popped out really easy. In this example, I wanted to show that of when it's not under tension, it all just wants to fall apart. But as soon as the tension of the weight of the log itself locks, it'll lock on those loops and hold that knot so it's not going anywhere. So now I'll go and connect the other side the exact same way I did here and show you that, yeah? Okay, so now I'm just going to take the other end of that log and bring it over. And all I'm going to do is now turn around, and I can even adjust this prusik before I go setting things. I just want to bring this to the point where it's just hooked underneath. And I can either hook it into its own loops, the little brommels that are on that line, or I can hook it in to the prusik drop line that I have here. So I'm just going to hook it into the prusik drop line exactly the same as I did on the other side to give it a bit of adjustability. And all I did was pop the knot through the loop, and we're on. It's there, it's not going anywhere. And I can apply pressure now onto this as a seat. So I'll step back, I'll adjust the wood just so it's sitting more nicely, but it's as simple as that. I now have this kind of raised bench, if you will, that gives me the ability to sit down without having to go through some elaborate setup or bring additional gear with me, yeah? So like I say, I'll shift camera angles and kind of show you this on a little bit better of an angle, and I'll rotate it so that I don't have any of the nubs sticking up and all that kind of happiness, yeah? But just give me 2 seconds and I'll kind of show you using this as a seat. Okay, so I know I'm kind of backlit, so it's unfortunate when it comes to some of the camera work, but as you can see, it's a little bit shy for where it's holding on this side, and I got a half decent amount on this side, so it's easy enough to just lift that up, kind of adjust where that loop is sitting on this log, you know, and bring it over a bit. It's not a big deal in that regard, yeah? And the same with this side, you know, if I want to kind of adjust things and bring it in a little bit further and all that kind of stuff, as long as there's some form of tension on it, it's really easy. And when it comes to, you know, I don't want to have these nubbies obviously poking me in the butt, so I just want to roll that over so that I've got all that kind of stuff facing down, right? And make sure that it's good and set on both sides, that I can handle that. And as long as I know that I'm sitting on this wood good and securely, as I apply pressure here, I'll turn around and just step over this. And you can adjust this here as well, where these loops are on the tree. If you want to move this whole thing up higher, it's easy enough to just kind of pull this a bit, loosen it, lift it up and set it. You know, it's all super adjustable. But as you can see, I now have I mean, this wood is rotten old wood, but I'm 230 pounds. So you can see in a matter of seconds, I was able to get it with, you know, simple resources off the land. I don't know how much this log is actually going to hold, but because it is kind of rotted. I live in rainforest country, so some of the wood looks solid, but it's not necessarily the most solid. So if you see me fall on my ass, don't be surprised. But needless to say, you can see I was able to get a bench, you know, set up with ease. Obviously, I should have picked a better piece of wood. There's just not a lot around here. But it took me a minute or so to even get this construct set up. And it allows me to have a comfortable place to kind of rest and sit without having to bring any additional gear off the land, yeah? And when it comes to taking this whole setup down now, so like I say, as you can see, really simple, elementary. When it comes to popping this whole thing down now, it's as easy as just kind of popping that knot back off. That side's down. When it comes to the other side, I just pop the knot through the loop. That side's off. And when I want to reclaim my gear, I just slide it back out through the loops. I'm off that tree, and I'm off this tree, and I can easily just bundle my modular Ropecraft system back up into my kit that I normally carry in my bag. And it was really a matter of 30 seconds to a minute to even set this kind of bench up, yeah? Now, in some situations you go into, you're going to find that there's half decent sized trees that exist in your area, but there might not be branches like this. I mean, like I say, even in this area, this was one of the few branches that was actually of the size big enough to even put body weight on that was in this whole area. So, you know, know, you're going to find in a lot of areas there might not be a lot of branches that are readily available without you having to cut down trees and stuff, and you might not want to do that. So in the next example I'm going to show here, I'll show how you can purely just use the modular Ropecraft system to set up a bench between the trees, and you know, like this, and not have to rely on having cross beam bench bars or any of that business. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to set up and it'll use a bit more of your cordage, but it's just as easy to disassemble and take with you at the end of the day and go. So let me shift camera angles and kind of set up, and I'll show you the next method now. Yeah. Okay, so I've got 4 of my modular Ropecraft systems that are just daisy chained together. And like I say, if you have no idea about these modular Ropecraft systems, you might be better off to go back and watch that full video to get full bearing of exactly what these are and how they were built and why I made them the way they did. But needless to say, I'm going to just take one of these. I'm going to wrap it around this tree, and just as a placeholder now, I'm just going to take the knot that's on the end of it and I'm going to feed it through one of the locked brommels just so I can get a tension point to lock onto here. And I'm strapped to this tree now. I'll just adjust it, and it just allows me to quickly turn around and say, okay, let's run the line out to the other tree. So I'll shift camera angles back. I'll show what exactly I'm doing here in close-up as we go, but I'll shift camera angles back so you guys can see a little better, because it's a hard balance for me between showing it all up close and showing you the overall theme of what I'm doing. Yeah, so let me just kind of set the camera back, you guys can see the overall theme, and then I'll show close-ups of exactly how I'm hooking this stuff together. It's just kind of braced onto this tree just so I have a point to hook onto. Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll just come around this tree here, because you know, they're both within reason, you know, the distance I need them to be at, right? But all I'm going to do is simply take this 4 set of these modular Ropecraft systems, and I'm just going to walk them around and bring them back on each other. And when I get back to this side now, I'm going to turn around and, you know, make sure that it's all sitting kind of where I want it to be roughly, and it's all going to be adjustable, so you don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to now loosen the knot that was bracing all that stuff in to begin with. And I'm going to take that knot and just bring it up, and I'm going to feed it through one of the locked rommels on the line, and I'm going to apply tension back on itself, and I'm going to just put the knot that's on here, I'm just going to feed that back into one of the locked rommels. In essence, what I'm doing here is just making a ring that goes around these 2 trees. Yeah, and by pulling it back on itself, it just allows me to apply a decent amount of tension to whatever degree I want, and then lock it. And it's as simple as that. These 2 rings are locked on there. If I want to kind of adjust them a little more than I have, which I do, I'll just loosen that off, let off a bit of the tension, kind of set it more to the position that I want it to be at, you know. And I can see that this tree, it was a little high, but within reason, that's about where I want it to be. And then I'll, like I say, just apply the tension back on this line again so it's firm, feed it back through one of its locked rommels, and put in that knot. And just as simple as that, I've got this ring now that's strapped to these 2 trees. So I'll come up close and show a close-up of exactly what I've done right at this point. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just loosen this off to show you exactly what I've done here in up close detail. So I can just pop that knot out, and I'm back off, and everything's off. And now all this really is the very first part of the modular Ropecraft system that I have. I took the knot that's in it, and I just fed it through one of the locked brommels that exists on the line that we've pulled around, and we've got these little loops that exist all the way along the line. I just picked one of them. Just slide that out of the way. I'll pick this one, say. I just picked one of these, and I feed the knot through here, just to make it more slack to work with it for the camera. I just slide that knot through, and then I turn around and take this knot, I pull it back to apply tension, and I'm just going to feed it back through another one of the loops that's sitting on the line, because there's loops all the way along the line that sits here. So I'm just going to grab it by its loop, pull it to give me a decent amount of tension, and then I'm going to open one of the loops and pop it in and just let it sit and lock. And it's hooked on there. We're on nice and solid. So it's really, really elementary. Then when it comes to, I had additional modular Ropecraft system that was attached here, I can release that right at this point easy enough. I just pop this little lark's head knot that's on there, and I can detach this one, and now this modular Ropecraft system is fully independent of this, and I've got it set up where there's a half decent amount of tension that exists now as a loop that goes around these two trees, and it's all cleanly being held with tension right by this knot and this locked Bramble right here. So I'll shift camera angles again and we'll move on to the next part of the setup, yeah? So like I say, you can see this is a, you know, easy loop system now, and it's got a half decent amount of tension. If I want to make it easier to kind of move stuff and shift things, I'll just loosen off that little knot and give myself a bit of slack. I can move and adjust things and then tighten it back up to wherever I want this set, yeah? And this is, because this is Kevlar cordage, it can handle up to like 3,600 pounds of strength, just a single line. So having it doubled up on itself makes it that this will be super strong. I'm not worried about this falling apart or lines breaking when I sit down on it or any of that business. But I'll shift camera angles now and we'll kind of show how, and you can expand out what I'm doing. In previous videos a long time ago, I showed how you could make cordage beds with this kind of construct. You can do the exact same thing as I'm about to show you. I'm just doing a mini version that'll show you a seat, yeah? So let me grab another one of these modular Ropecraft system components, and I'll shift camera angles now, and we'll just lash together a seat that sits in between these that we can sit on, yeah? Okay. So I had these Prusik drop lines that sit on here, and I just moved them out of the way because I won't need them in this example. Now, I've got one more of my modular Ropecraft system components here, and I'm just going to simply turn around and take one of these lark's head, or one of these locked Bramble loops that I have on one of the main lines here, and I'm just going to feed my loop through and then pull the remainder of it through that construct, just so I'm cinched on now and locked on to that point, yeah? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk this over now to a loop that sits on the other side, and I'm just going to feed that through here and pull the remainder of it through. And like I say, really elementary, there's not much to it. It's because I've made it fairly tight to begin with that these loops are just having a hard time letting the knots through. But it's not a big deal. Like, this is all elementary stuff. And really, what I'm wanting to do now is every second one of these, I'm wanting to zigzag back to, and in fact, what I'll do is, just to keep some of these Prusik drop lines out of the way, I'm just going to slide those right up and out of the way so that they can sit and I don't have to struggle with them through the whole time. So I'll just pop those to one end of where I'm working, if you will. Now the other end, I'm simply just going to take my knot, feed it through every second loop that sits on the line. So there's a loop here, I went through the loop here, I'm going to skip this loop, I'm going to go through this loop here, I'm going to feed my knot through, pull it all the way through, put whatever tension I want to apply to it here, and it's all, you know, to your discretion how much tension you want to sit onto this seating. But I'm going to bring it across, I'm going to skip 2 loops here, and I'm going to feed it through, just make sure I'm onto the second one, I'm going to feed it through here, and now I'm going to carry on doing that every second one. So I skip 2 loops, or I skip 1 loop, sorry, and go through the second over and feed that through. And as you can see, I'm starting to form a base now. Now what I can do is I can now step it back on itself and start to come back through the loops that I missed the spots. So I can apply whatever tension I want and make sure that I pull my tension right through the entire construct so that there's equal tension that exists across the board. But all I'm going to do now is come back to these second loops that I didn't go through the first time. I'm going to open them up and then walk back through them and just feed my knot through. each one of those. And it starts to get tighter and tighter as we go, so it becomes more and more difficult to feed that knot through. But hopefully this gives you an easy idea of what I'm doing here. In essence, just making a quick frame that my butt cheeks can sit on, yeah? And like I said, I'm only using one of these modular Ropecraft system components to do this. I have 8 of them in my complete set. This whole construct, see, now I've kind of got some framework where things are starting to form enough of a pad where I can set down onto, yeah? But I've got enough of these because this is only half of the ones I have. I've got the other half still sitting here. In my original build out, I made 8 of these. This is using 4 of them. But as you can see, it's easy enough for me to turn around and pop this through now. And as I get back to the point where I'm coming back on my own self, I want to pull the tension. I'm just going to bring it around a final, I can even feed it through another one of the loops here. And it's very arbitrary how you go about doing this. But the heart of it is, to finish this off now, I'm going to take the knot that's at the end of this modular Ropecraft system and pop it through its own loop system and just set it in and let the tension now lock it. And that's there, it's on. This thing isn't going anywhere. So I'll shift the camera back now and I'll sit on it, and you can see this alone can make a comfortable seat. Like I say, I didn't even do the fancy structure here, but I now have a pad area that I can sit on. And you can see I'm floating right off the ground. And I feel like my cheeks are being supported, if you will, right? And you can turn around and put the lashing you're doing across here, you can develop that out to be as thick as you want it to be, but you know, or you can keep it sparse and just do it rapidly if you want. But this is 4 modular Ropecraft system components, and like I said, I didn't tie any knots to make this reality happen. I'm floating fully off the ground, right? And it's comfortable. It feels like I'm sitting on a hammock, to give you an idea of the comfort level of what I'm got going on here. And when it comes to popping this all apart, I'll shift camera angles and go through all that, and I'll show you a little bit of a close-up of what we got going on here, because visually it'll look like a bit of a mess because I've just got these drop lines that are sitting on here, but really it's not critical to the functionality of things. As you apply tension and stuff, everything will balance and just kind of even out, and it'll all just become more kind of controlled, if you will. I don't know the best way to describe that. The line tension will become equally dispersed across the seat after after you sit in it once or twice. So it kind of self-corrects any of the tension that you didn't get evenly as you went from one loop to the next and that kind of stuff, yeah? All that stuff self-corrects. But I'll stop and I'll show the camera angle of exactly what this looks like from kind of above, and then I'll show you how easy it is to just pop this whole thing apart at the end, yeah? So you can see it just makes this kind of crisscross pattern that just helps support your cheeks, right? And when it comes to taking all of this stuff apart, I'll turn around and just shift over to this side again. None of this was done with any knots being tied or any of that business. It's just using the modular Ropecraft system for what it's designed to be used for. So I'll just pop out that side, simply just start pulling it back all out through the loops that I had just strapped it in through, and it all just starts to come back apart. And you can see it does take an extra minute or two when it comes to this, because you know, it's a little more finicky getting that one knot through the mix of everything, but it's really elementary to do. There's nothing complex here that goes on. The only thing that was really even a catch in any way is where we've got these Prusik drop lines that sit on the line. They can kind of get in the way sometimes, so you just got to position them in a good spot where you know that that's not going to be a factor, if you will, right? And as you can see, pulling it all apart is elementary. I simply open up the loop, allow the entire component to come through, and it's back off. Just that easy. And when it comes to when it connected on at the junction point where it connected to its first loop here, that was a simple lark's head. So if I pull on this, it all just opens up and frees off. There's no complex knots to be done here. And now I'm back to having that individual modular component back in isolation again. So I'll just throw that to the side. I'll step the camera back and we'll detach this entire system. But as you can see, there's what, 20-30 seconds to get that off the line, maybe a minute tops, and then it'll be another 10-20 seconds to pop off this entire support structure we've got between the two trees. So the teardown of this is really, really rapid, you know, and it allows it where I can turn around, pull out a full kit like this out of my bag, or just have it in my pocket as I'm going. I can whip something like this up in 2 or 3 minutes and tear it down in 2 or 3 minutes, but it gives me a way to kind of have a comfortable seat on the fly without having to carry a full stool or any of that kind of stuff. I still do enjoy the stool I have because I paid lots of money for it and it's super cozy, but if I don't want to have to carry that extra weight with me because I know I've got a heavy kit, I can easily use my modular Ropecraft system to achieve the same sort of comfort level that I would without my stool being there. So let me shift the camera angles back and we'll do a full tear down and we'll start to wrap this up, yeah? So, and you can see that I popped that out, I loosened the tension off and just free it up from the tree. There's no knots, right? Everything's done. I'm off this tree completely. You know, it's one of those things of it takes literally seconds to kind of tear this stuff down even after you've set it up, right? Then it's one of those things where I just wanted to give a few more advanced examples of using these modular Ropecraft systems, because it really, for me, I find them to be invaluable when I'm out in the field, of the amount of time and effort that it saves me in having to do a bunch of stuff when I'm out in the field is really invaluable. I've shown in previous videos, like I said, how to do tripods, how to set up ridge lines, how to put up like clothes hanger lines and that kind of stuff, gear hang lines. I've showed how to do trot lines for fishing and all that kind of stuff. In this example, I showed how we could do a quick seat where you could kind of get up off the dirt and be able to sit a little more comfortably and that kind of stuff. And all of that stuff I was able to do without having to tie any knots. And I was able to reclaim 100% of my kit after the fact in a matter of seconds. You know, I plan on doing a few more videos to show more of the functionality that you can get out of these modular Ropecraft systems, but to me they're invaluable. I'll try to do similar videos using the bankline version of these that I've done in the past as well, to show kind of some of the flexible different setups and stuff that you can do using those components as well. Just to show the versatility of using these modular Ropecraft systems. I mean, I spent years developing different Ropecraft systems to get to the point I'm at now, and for good reason. You know, you spend a lot of dirt time, I like to call it, when you spend a lot of time when you're out in the woods, and you end up spending a lot of time setting up camps and stuff. It can become exhausting after, you know, you hike, say, 20 kilometers. I'm in Canada, so I use kilometers, but you know, you end up hiking a good fair distance out in the field and you're carrying a 40-pound bag. The last thing you want to have when you get to your camp is a whole bunch of work involved in setting up. And you know, with tricks like this, it allows me to set up lightweight, mobile. I can do it rapidly, I can do it without tying any knots, so when it's cold my hands are stiff and stuff, I can still do all these types of things, you know, and they're expandable. I could turn that seat into a full-out bed if I use 2 or 3 more of these, you know, maybe 4 more of these modular Ropecraft systems. I can expand it out between larger trees, you know, like larger distance between the trees, and set up a full bed so it's raised up and off the ground and all that, and be able to tear it all down within reason to the same speed I did now. You know, when you're out in the field and you're doing this kind of stuff, it's always calories out and calories in. You know, how much energy are you expending to do the things you're wanting to do? And having modular Ropecraft systems in your kit, to me, is invaluable in the regards of the calories saved and the time and effort it takes for me to do all these different tasks. Like I say, I'll do future videos, but hopefully that gives you, you know, showing even more stuff that you can do with these things. But hopefully that gives you another flavor of what you can do with these modular Ropecraft systems and how handy they are using them out in the field. So if you enjoy this type of content, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching, yeah? Cheers.